Welcome to the Agent Upgrade Podcast with your hosts Jasmine Krnjetin and Alan Corey, where we learn the strategies of top producing real estate agents so you have the tools to upgrade your own real estate career.
All right, Jasmine. So this episode of Agent Upgrade Podcast is going to be a little bit different. There's been new news that's just been released this week about new loan limits, and just wanted to know, what does that mean? Because I've got mortgage brokers really blasting out, hey, realtors, we got new loan limits. And, what does that mean? That buyers can borrow more? And how does that help a realtor's business, if so?
Yeah, so every year the Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA, publishes annual conforming loan limits that basically apply to all conventional loans that get delivered to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. So that's the majority of the loans that people get are going to be your conforming loans. And so we've had, for the longest time, conforming loan limits for I don't even know, for many years running, conforming loan limits were at $417,000. And then last year, the conforming loan limits were $548,200. And so this year we got an almost $100,000 increase on the loan limits. So the loan limits are now, conforming loan limits for a single family unit are $647,200. They can't make it easy on us. They always give us some complicated number. Just give me one number, 645 or something. But no, it's 647,200. And so that means that anybody, when you're doing a loan, that's your limit, where you can still follow the conforming guidelines for your loan. So that means that you're using the automated underwriting system that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac give us. And there is a lot of different income waivers or property inspection waivers. There's a lot of things that we can get when we run things through the automated system, which make it much simpler to close the loans. You get better interest rates, and you can just basically follow those guidelines. And as long as you follow this checklist that you get from the automated underwriting system, you can deliver the loan to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac.
So that means,
and then when you get,
So that means that if you're a buyer with 3% down, 3.5% down, or a buyer with 5% down, basically they can buy a more expensive home. Their money goes a little bit further.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, if you're going to be putting 3% down, you could really buy a house that's around $667,000. So you could put a house under contract for $667,000, put 3% down, and get a conforming loan, right? Wherein before that would have put you into the jumbo area. Jumbo loans automatically need a higher down payment. There is jumbo loans. We have some adjustable rate mortgages that will do as little as 5% down on jumbo, but your typical jumbo loans are going to need 10, 15, even most likely 20% down. So the further they stretch those loan limits, the more affordable these higher priced homes are for buyers. Because a lot of times, if you want, even a couple of years ago, if you wanted to buy a house that was $650,000, you had to put enough money down to get into a $417,000 loan amount if you wanted to follow the conforming underwriting guidelines. Jumbo guidelines are technically are always a manual underwrite, if you will, and so you're going to have 2 years of tax returns, 2 years of this, 6 or 12 months of reserves. Just it's just tougher. It's just, let's just leave it at that.
More eyeball. A jumbo loan has more eyeballs on it. More questions are asked.
More questions asked. Yeah. And I mean, we do a lot of jumbo loans, so we close them. We close those with our, with our eyes closed, as well. But, it's just in general, it's a little bit easier for borrowers and a smaller down payment. Now, what's kind of interesting here when we're talking about loan limits, you and I, we work with a lot of clients that buy investment properties. And sometimes those investment properties are 2 units, 3 units, 4 units. And what most people don't realize is that the conforming loan limits go up when you're buying a 2 unit. So instead of the loan limit being at 600 and something thousand, you're now at $828,000 as your loan limit if you're buying a duplex. And that stretches up to $1 million if you're buying a triplex, and 1.25 4 million if you're buying a quad. So for your investors, right, like normally you would think like, oh, well, if you're buying a $1.3 million house, we're going to need to have all this money down, right? But you could actually afford a bigger loan amount and still stay conforming and not be in the jumbo realm with your investment properties. So that's really exciting.
So let me put that in numbers. And realtors, at least I do, a lot of experience. Hey, Alan, I just saved up $20,000. I'm ready to buy a house. And my dad told me that, I should put 20% down. So can you start showing me some $100,000 homes? Because I've got 20,000 saved up. I'm going to put 20% down, and let's go look at $100,000 homes. Yeah, sure, if that's your plan. But honestly, if you educate your buyers, you can say, well, how about we look at $650,000 homes? And they're like, what? You're crazy, Alan. I can't afford that. And it's, well, you can by putting 20%. $20,000 is 3% down payment on these new conforming loan limits. So we say it was 646 and some change. So you can buy a house at 646 and put $20,000 down. Now, what that may be putting them out of putting some stress on them on a month-to-month basis, because obviously their mortgage payment is going to be a little bit longer. But when you go into this duplex, triplex, quadruplex situation, so you said it was $1 million on a triplex, which is 3 units, you can educate your buyers like, hey, you can put $30,000 down. That's 3% with these new loan limits. And buy $1 million property, you live in 1 unit, which is also referred to as house hacking. You rent out the other 2 units. So if you would have bought a $100,000 property and put $20,000 down, which is what you were probably advised and what all the financial gurus tell you to do, you're probably still paying $700, $800 a month in rent. But if you buy $1 million triplex with this new loan regulation and you put $30,000 down, 3%, let's say you're renting out the other 2 units for $1,000, maybe $1,200 each, depending where you live. You can run the numbers. You could probably still pay $800 a month. So what would you rather do? Pay $800 a month on a single family house, or pay $800 a month on $1 million house, because the rental income is covering up the difference in mortgage. Fast forward for 30 years, you have a $100,000 house paid off, or you got $1 million property paid off. You've 10x'd your income, your net worth, I should say, by doing it this way. And so I try to educate all my buyers. I start with every first-time home buyer. I explain this duplex situation, triplex situation, quadruplex situation. Obviously, it's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to be a landlord. Not everyone wants to live next that door to someone in a shared building. I get that, but at least I educate them. But it's surprising how many were like, wow, that makes great financial sense. Let's do it. And all of a sudden I've turned a $100,000 deal into $1 million deal. And I'm not doing it because I'm a sleazy car salesman. Like I really want to help them financially. And I say, guys, I've done this. I've done this myself. I've written 3 books about this. So this is not some wacky conspiracy theory. This is what real estate investors, how they evaluate properties. And a lot of times first-time home buyers don't have that knowledge. And also realtors don't have that knowledge. So thank you for walking us down that path.
Yeah. So I feel that, so one of the things that the way you buy, a quad with 3.5% down is using an FHA loan, and those loan limits have also just gotten pushed up, so that so those are like somewhere between 400, 500, 600, and 800,000 for 1 to 4 unit homes. So those loan limits have gone up as well, and I agree with you. That is the best, like first time home buyers. And you and I, we have done this quite a few times with our buyers, just kind of shown them the path to like, this is how you get 4 doors, my friend. This is how you get 4 doors. I still remember we had that one client where it was like, he was qualified for a $200,000 house on his own. And we ended up putting him into a $700,000 quad with the same $20,000 down payment he was going to put down on his single family at 250. So great tool for agents to educate their buyers. Loan limits are up, and it's good because housing is getting more expensive. So the loan limits kind of had to keep up with us.
Now, it's worth mentioning the loan limits that you're mentioning are for Atlanta. So the loan limits are based on the size of the city. Atlanta's a mid-tier city. So if you're in a more populous city, New York, San Francisco, LA, I think Chicago, those loan limits are actually even higher than what you read. And then also if you're in more of a rural part of town, regardless of your state, you might be considered a third tier city, based on population and income of the city. So they might be tiered a little bit lower, depending where you are and where you're listening to this. But we're right in the middle in Atlanta, so that's like the average. But they did go up across the whole nation. So whatever you're used to, the limits, the FHA limits have risen.
Have gone up.
Yeah.
And also VA loans as well. VA loans tend to follow the conforming loan limits. So all across the board, loan limits are going up, yay, which is great news for our buyers. So
now some people may listen to this and say, oh no, this is a repeat of the housing crash where we gave loans, bigger and bigger loans to people who couldn't afford it. What would you say to that?
No, if you saw the way we underwrite loans these days versus the way loans were underwritten back in the day, it's very, very difficult. It's so different. I remember back in the day, like Bank of America had a stated income, stated asset, 580 credit score, 100% financing. I was like, okay, who thought that was a good idea?
What is stated income mean?
Stated income is basically you come to me and you say, I'm a hairdresser and I make $20,000 a month. And I would say, okay, you make $20,000 a month as a hairdresser.
Yeah. Well,
And I have $300,000 in the bank. Okay, you've got $300,000 in the bank. I'll take your word for it. That's essentially what those loans were. And so, there was a lot of problems when those people who don't make $20,000 a month tried making those, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 mortgage payments. These days, oh no. We are going to verify and triple check, quadruple check, and make sure you've got the credit and the income and the assets. The automated underwriting system runs so many fraud guards in the background that there is just, if an uncle left you a property in California 17 years ago that has a $10,000 a month, $10,000 a year tax bill, the automated system is going to flag it and say, hey, you did not include that $10,000 tax bill that his uncle left him in California. So your debt to income ratios are off. So underwriting has stepped up their game. How's about that?
Yeah. So underwriting is the fact checkers on your loan application. That was non-existent prior to the housing crash. Everyone just got approved for loans stating, I make $1 million a year. Okay, if you say so, then here's your loan. Those days are not happening right now. And so if you're, I do have buyers who ask me that question who are freaked out. Are we back into the house's price keeps going up? Are we in a bubble? Are we in a bubble because the housing price is going up? And my response to that is, let's look at supply and demand. Why are the prices going up? Well, during the pandemic, we had basically new construction shut down. It shut down for various reasons. One, banks freaked out and they said, we don't know what's happening. This is, 2 years ago, pandemic's new. We haven't had a pandemic for over 100 years. We're not going to loan any money to any new home builder to build a spec home because that seems like a gamble. So all the people who did business building new construction homes basically couldn't do business. They went out of business, right? Or at least went on pause. And so what happens is now, 2 years later, there's no new construction homes on the market, or if there's fewer than there typically are. And so there's less inventory. Part B is, hey, during the pandemic, we couldn't evict anyone, which, in some circles that's great. It's great, because people lost their jobs and you don't want a bunch of homeless population going, being created and putting families out on the street. So I support that and I understand that. But realize that there's an entire segment of the real estate business of investors who buy homes at foreclosure steps to flip properties. It exists. They have a place in this world. They do a great business of taking rundown properties, probably in rundown neighborhoods, maybe there's boarded up properties, unsafe properties, and they put their hard work and money into fixing up these properties, like you see in all the HGTV shows, and putting them back on the market at a higher price. And they need realtors to help sell those homes, right? And then buyers to go buy those homes. Well, if you have an eviction moratorium for 2 years, guess who else is out of business? All the home flippers are out of business. So you have a lot of these properties that are boarded up, or there's people living in there not making mortgage payments, and they would have to turn into renters, but now they're able to just stay in their homes. So just know that every good decision will have side effects to it. So that also reduces inventory, right? New builders can't build, house flippers can't house flip. Now let's add it to the ones who can work. Maybe the home builders that were in the middle of a project, or house builders or house flippers who were able to buy something off market or bought a rundown home, not because of eviction reasons. Well, you also have supply chain issues, right? So they have the house, they have the crew looking for work, but the lumber isn't arriving, the steel's not arriving, the appliances aren't arriving, or the ones that they are, it's like bidding war for supplies, and the prices go up. And so if you're in the business of renovating a home, however you acquire it, and the expenses and the materials go up, or building a new home for the same reason, guess what? You have to raise the price of the home. Otherwise, you're altruistic. You're building a house and losing money. No one's going to do that because this is their job, right? So then they've got to increase the price of the home. And then guess what? The people who want a renovated home, whether from this or new construction home, the ones that actually get to the finish line, maybe they didn't need a mortgage, maybe they did it in all cash to get there. Well, guess what? A lot of buyers want that product. They used to have 100 choices of renovated homes. Now they've got 10, but you still have 100 buyers. So what happens? Bidding war, and it goes up because you have a very low inventory, very low supply, but you still have the same demand. So that to me is how I explain to my buyers why the prices keep going up, why we're not in a bubble, because it's not an artificial bubble that you have bidding wars because everyone can get a loan. We're having bidding wars because we have more buyers than we have inventory. And I just laid out the main reasons why we have low inventory. And I don't see that changing in the next year.
It won't, because if you read some of the articles out there, like I think Forbes said that we're about 5.2 million homes short right now.
Right.
How long do you think it's going to take us to build 5.2 million homes?
Yeah. So everyone's 2 years delayed. So those guys have now banks are more comfortable with the pandemic. They're giving loans to new home builders. They've just started rolling through the evictions back again, but it's not all going to happen at once. There's a 2-year backlog, right? And so we're slowly going to get back to business, but there's still supply chain issues, right? So even if you are able to resume your previous form of making money in the trades, you still have to, pay crazy amounts of money on materials, which means the house prices are going to go up. And there's also a very common stat, a very well circulated stat, that right now there's more licensed real estate agents in the United States as there are homes for sale. So
everybody gets one home.
So if you have a listing, just you're a lucky person to have a listing. And so just know that also means there's a housing shortage, not because of some fabricated financing vehicle creating a bubble, but it's really we have a shortage in real estate of houses to buy. And so educating your buyers there will also make them feel way more comfortable getting in a bidding war, to getting them over that hump. If you explain why we're in a housing bubble, or I don't use the word bubble, it's not a housing bubble. It's a supply and demand, and also interest rates are super low. Like I've been telling people for 4 years, there's no way interest rates can get any lower. Like you want to buy a house now, but it's like, hey, interest rates can only go up. We haven't seen it happen yet. They're still historically low, but eventually they're going to go up. So that means people can buy more expensive homes. Their money can go further with these 3% down programs on FHA. And also I recommend that because you're borrowing what, 3%? What are the interest rates now?
Yeah, 3% on a 30-year fix. So, I mean, they're going up a little bit, but still, we're going to be into threes, I believe, for at least a foreseeable future.
So I also educate my buyers. Hey, if you can put 20% down, or you can put 3% down, I understand you have the money. Put 3% down and borrow the other 17% at 3% interest. That's cheap money. Historically, the stock market returns 8% a year, ups and downs. So you take that extra 17% you would have put in your house, right? And you're basically borrowing it at 3%. You put it in the stock market and earn 8%. You're making 5% on your money, right? So why would you put 20% down on a house when interest rates are so low, when you could take that money, that extra 17%, and turn 5% by just putting it in the stock market?
Or save it and buy an investment property.
Buy a second home. Yes. As a realtor, you can teach them to buy a second home. And depending on my audience, I might say, go put that in cryptocurrency. And it could go to zero, but it could go to
a lot.
To the moon. So there's better investment vehicles. And I think people have just been miseducated on that because everyone grew up on putting 20% down. But that was because interest rates were in the 8%. When I bought my first home, I paid 8%, and this was 20 years ago. But that's why you're like, don't put 20% down because you can put 8% on the stock market, but you're getting guaranteed 8% on your mortgage. So why don't you go ahead and put 20% down? And so now that interest rates are more than half that, that advice doesn't apply anymore. Also, people want to put 20% because you're less likely to get foreclosed on. The way I look at it is that's not true, because if I put 3% down and I just put that money in checking, now I have a cushion, right? I want to, if I lose my job, then I can use for my emergency fund to pay my mortgage until I get a job again, right? If I put all my savings into buying my first house, I don't have that emergency cushion. And then that to me makes it scary that I might get foreclosed on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have these conversations with my buyers a lot because I'm always like, they're like, oh, well, we could probably stretch and do $45,000 down. And I'm like, how's about we do 15,000 down? You keep that 30 because you're going to need an alarm system. That's going to be $500. You're going to need a fridge. That's going to be $2,000. Like, you need just to move in. People don't realize. And I think we need to educate our clients. Like, it takes a lot of money to actually move into a home. Little things that you don't think about. And if they put everything as a down payment, they're not even going to have money for draperies, so keeping the cash is king in my opinion. And yes, if you put 20% down, you're going to get the most perfect rate. You're not going to have PMI. You're going to have, the best of the best possible loans, which I understand. But if that's a stretch, it's really not needed. You don't need to put that kind of money down to get into a good loan. It's still a 30-year fixed loan. It's not like that you're going into some shaky, weird, like, oh my God, your interest rate is going to adjust every 4 months.
Yeah, that's another point, because the housing crisis was caused by ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, where, hey, you stated income loans, like you said, where, hey, we'll give you this interest rate for 2 years, 3 years, and then we're going to readjust the rate. So people maybe could get by for those first 2-3 years, but when everything readjusted 3 years later to a higher interest rate, that's when everyone foreclosed upon.
Things were.
But this is a program, the FHA loans, 3% down, where it's 30-year fixed, and you're really spreading out those payments over time. And I love talking about inflation. A lot of people want to buy real estate right now. Investors take their money out of cash, out of stocks, because of inflation. So let's break down, and I might maybe mention this before in another show, but inflation is basically the cost of all things increasing. So you go buy car tires now. You should go buy car tires now, because if you need car tires, instead of waiting 2 years to buy them, because they're going to be more expensive in the future. The Dollar Tree, the whole chain just announced we no longer sell everything $1. The cheapest thing in our store is now $1.25 because of inflation.
Inflation.
We're
a $1.25 store.
So everything there's now $1.25, the cheapest item. So the cost of all goods is going up. So that's why I love 30-year fixed mortgages. So if my mortgage payment is $1,000 a month now, I know what $1,000 is going to cost me. And let's say that my what's something else that would cost $1,000 a month? Maybe your car payment is don't have $1,000 car payment.
No. Don't do that.
Maybe you're spending $1,000 a month on food. A combination of restaurants, grocery stores. You're spending $1,000 a month on food, right? And you also have $1,000 a month mortgage payment. Well, with inflation, which is coming, and inflation is created because to stimulus packages, the government prints more dollar bills. So if you print more dollar bills, each dollar bill has less purchasing power, which makes the cost of all things move up. Because there's more dollar bills out there, it's not worth as much. It's not as unique and rare. So your food bill next year will probably be $1,025. Kind of like the dollar store went from $1 to $1.25. You're now spending $1,025. But guess what? Your fixed mortgage rate is $1,000 still. That doesn't change. So it's going to feel cheaper next year, even though your food is going to be more expensive. Your mortgage is going to feel cheaper. And just take that exercise and bring it out to 5 years. And now your food bill is $1,200 a month. Wow, it cost me $1,200 a month. I'm buying the exact same food. I'm going to the exact same restaurants, but now it's $1,200 a month. But guess what? Your mortgage payment is still $1,000 a month. 15 years from now, your mortgage payment is still $1,000 a month. So actually, it's going to feel like it's getting cheaper and cheaper, and it really is getting cheaper and cheaper. So you should save as much money as you can, put as little down payment as possible, so that you can put it in those escalating, inflated prices that aren't going to ever come back down. Like once you print the dollar bill, unless the government destroys millions and millions of dollar bills, which I don't see that happening. And so this also goes back to why cryptocurrency is taking off right now, because that has inflation hedge, just like real estate. And so as an investor, I do both. I invest in long-term 30-year debt, and also invest in cryptocurrency, and that because of this inflation. So I educate my buyers on that, and really tell them to put as little down as possible, and get as many 30-year mortgages. So if you can take that 3% down payment and then also go buy a rental property and use that as a 20% down payment on an investment property, the difference. And so you can also lock in 30-year debt and have rental income. As long as that tenant's, paying all your expenses, breaking even, it's going to work out. It'd be great. Typically, I say at least have $100 of income coming in. But what you're really doing is locking in that 30-year debt, because what's going to happen? Rent payments are going to go up. The rent payments that you're charging, right? Not because of anything, but because of inflation, you have to charge more in rent. And tenants know that. And so it might be $100 a month your first year that you're profiting, but next year it might be $125, then $175, then $250. And then someone else is paying down your debt for you. And it's going to feel like it's getting cheaper and cheaper. So there's many of those little income sources that you can create, those little ATM machines that I call it. Buy a 30-year fixed rental property, 30-year fixed rental property. It doesn't have to be something expensive. I take clients who live in a $500,000 house, but we go buy $100,000 rental properties. Like, a lot of people think that the rental property they buy has to be the same price point as their primary residence or above. And if they don't do that, there's some sort of slumlord. But no, you can have a really nice property that's $100,000. It heats and it provides a nice kitchen. It doesn't have to be even an IKEA kitchen. It could be a kitchen that just has a stove that you bought used, and there's going to be a family that appreciates it because their previous place didn't have that, and they've stepped up in life and they're living in your rental unit, and there's pride of living in a $100,000 house. They've never done that before, and maybe you are not in that stage, but I promise you, my tenants, I try to be a great landlord, and that doesn't mean giving them granite countertops. The fact that there are even countertops that
as long as it's clean and nice, and
they're used to a fold up table as their counter, and now that they have actual countertops, they're over the moon, and everyone's at different stages in their life. And so, just educating buyers on on inflation is also a good thing with these loan limits, and to let them know it's not because of a bubble that we're creating. It's not artificially induced. There's real logical reasons. And until we have more housing supply and we stop printing more dollar bills, I don't think real estate is going to change much. It's just going to be a better investment, and prices are going to keep going up.
Yeah. I mean, I just looked it up. If you had a $1,000 mortgage payment 30 years ago, so if you were spending $12,000 a year on a mortgage payment, then that same amount or that same item would cost $24,000 now.
Wow.
So it basically doubled in 30 years.
And
inflation.
Chances are it's going to possibly more than double the way we're spending. I'm not saying we shouldn't be spending. I think that the stimulus is doing great for the country, but there's like every decision, there's going to be side effects based on it.
Yeah.
So, wow. Well, I think we covered a lot without interviewing anyone, Jasmine.
I love it. Well, I hope that you guys get something out of this, be able to explain the loan limits to your clients, and hopefully we give you a couple good ideas and talking points when you're taking your clients out and about town.
Yeah, there you go. There you have it. The number one rant that I give my clients, you just heard. So I apologize for spewing all that to you, but I need to spread that message because I get that asked a lot.
Yes. Just copy and paste, guys. This is good intel. You can share. You can own it. It can be yours.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time on Agent Upgrade, and we've got some great guests coming up, and we're going to try to explore some more of these episodes where we just sort of check in with what's happening, news that have just happened this week, because hopefully you guys will find it useful. And check us out on our social media channels. Instagram is our most popular, but we're trying to push our Facebook group, as well as now we've started putting all these episodes on YouTube. So if you want to see us as well as hear us, we're definitely on YouTube now. All the episodes that you've already heard are popping up on YouTube every single day, and all of our future episodes will go there too. Shout out to our editor, Stephanie, who's doing a great job on that. She's also editing this podcast. We've had recent mic issues, so you'll see now that I have a microphone in front of my mouth because it sounded like I was underwater before, and so hopefully our audio will improve over time as well. So thank you for tuning in to Agent Upgrade. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Agent Upgrade podcast. If you are an agent looking for a new mortgage lender, start with Jasmine at jasmineteam.com. If you want to learn about real estate investing and working with investors, check in with Alan at thehouseofac.com. See you next time on Agent Upgrade.